All right, we got a file to download. We got 2 files to download today from Learning Suite. So let's go to Learning Suite. Oh, shoot, I haven't logged in. I mean to authenticate. I think I am who I say I am. All right, so today is about automatically sending both email and text messages from VBA. So I've got these 2 files, sendgmail.xlsm, which I'm going to download, I think. Download. And then I've got email message.txt. I think if I click on this, it's going to try to open it. I don't want to open it. I'm going to right click and say save file as or save target as or something. Save link as. And so let's go ahead and open up both of these ultimately, but I'm going to open up the Excel file first. So here's the context for today's example. Suppose you're on an internship with the National Highway Transportation Safety Bureau, and you've been assigned a set of cases. These are people who have made complaints about a particular vehicle, some problem with a particular vehicle. And so, your job is to contact these people, let them know that you're the person if they want to provide more information, they can reach out to you. And so this is information, it's all public information, all real information except the names and the email addresses. Those are fake, they don't publish those. But this was a complaint that came from St. Peters, Missouri. The complaint came in on January 25th, 2000. I think I downloaded this data in the year 2000, so it's been around for a while. Manufacturer was Daimler Chrysler. It was a Dodge Ram, 1999 Dodge Ram. It failed earlier that month. It's dealing with the anti-brake skid system, which I think is kind of what I extracted, was just skid data or anti-skid braking system that resulted in injuries. So there's some number of injuries here. And here's the actual complaint. I don't know what it says. On January 8th, I was a passenger in a 99 Dodge Ram pickup westbound on Interstate 44. Sounds like it's going to be a thriller. Near mile marker, whatever, in Missouri. A Fenton Fire Department bumper, and unfortunately, these are all truncated, so we don't get the whole gruesome details about what happened. But this is the point: is that you've got people have made these complaints to the government, and the government has logged them, and is now your responsibility to reach out to these folks. So you don't want to have to send these guys all individual emails, and so we're going to automate that process. That's what we're after today. All right. It turns out that if you're on a wired connection here on BYU, you can send email without even being authenticated. You don't even have to you put your net ID or whatever. BYU has an open relay server on campus. I couldn't believe it when I stumbled across it. Oh, look, here's an open relay server. I used to use that server in this class, and just commented to students, you could actually, so it turns out SMTP, Simple Mail Transfer Protocol, was written for a trusted network. And so this idea is if you're on the network, we trust that you're going to behave well. But now it's been put onto the internet where we probably shouldn't be trusting folks. Have anyone ever gotten an email from someone that they didn't really send? You got that? It says it was from your mom, and it's not really from your mom. I mean, it's her address, you hit reply, it goes back to your mom or something like that? Yeah, how many of you have had that? Oh, not as many as I would have expected. So it turns out that in the protocol, SMTP, when you send a message, you say, this message is from this person. This is the email address that it comes, and it doesn't have anything to do with the email address that it was used to send it. In fact, you don't even need an email address to send an email using SMTP. And in fact, when Gmail was pretty young, so kind of early 2000s, 2004, 2005, their SMTP servers didn't require authentication either. And you can imagine the hackers went crazy with that. You just send this off, and you could say it's from whoever. I told my students, you could actually send messages here on campus and make it look just exactly as if it came from Kevin Worthen, university president. And when that message comes through, there's absolutely nothing about it that would say otherwise, just because it's the nature of the protocol. And I wonder if some of them actually did that because it was about a year after that they stopped routing port 25 traffic on any of the wireless networks on campus. So we can't use that one. That's okay. We're going to use the Gmail server. It just means you'll have to authenticate. So to do this, you're going to need to have a Gmail account. I'm assuming you all have a Gmail account. There may be someone who has, for religious reasons, doesn't want to use it or something. I don't know, but hopefully you all have a Gmail account. And the point is, we'll see. The point is that whatever email account you have, you can configure this to work with that particular platform. But it takes a little work to find out what's the IP address of the server that you're working with, what port is it listening on, and some other information about how it's configured. So that's where we're headed today. But as it turns out, must have been about 4 or 5 years ago that Gmail started saying, listen, if you're going to be sending email, that's kind of that's something that gets abused at Gmail. So they did a couple of things. Number one, they said you're only going to be able to send 100 messages a day if you're doing it with a separate program. Now, there's limits on your Gmail account. I think it's 500 messages a day. Anyone ever bumped into the thing where you say, I'm trying to send more messages, sorry, you've reached your limit? That's a lot of messages to send in one day, unless you're doing it automatic. And so what we're doing here is going to be limited by Gmail to 500 messages a day. But about 4 or 5 years ago, they said, you know what, if you're sending it from somewhere other than our client, we're going to limit you to 100 messages a day. And they said, we don't want you to do that. So much so, they said, we are going to require you to set a particular setting on your account called allow less secure passwords. And so that's one way that you can still do it. You can still go and set a setting on your Google account to say allow less secure passwords. And then you can use your regular Google account name and your password. You can authenticate and send messages. You're limited to 100 messages a day if you do that. There's another way to send them through your Gmail account using this approach, and that is to do something that is called an app-specific password. That's the way that we're going to do today. There's no additional limitation. It's still limited to the normal 500 messages a day if you do that. So I would like to show how to do that. So I guess I'm going to have to go to an account that I don't have this set up yet on. I've got several Gmail accounts floating around. So let's go and look at the process. But what that means, to be able to set up an app-specific password, you have to have dual-factor authentication set up on your Gmail account. How many of you are already using dual-factor authentication with your Gmail account? That's not nearly enough hands. Let me tell you why you should be using dual-factor authentication, even though it's really annoying. What happens if a hacker gets a hold of your Gmail account, if that's the one you use for your primary email? What happens? I mean, where is your exposure? It's huge. Because they can look through all your email. If you don't delete email, like I never delete email, they can look through all your estimates, and they can find every account you've created. They send a confirmation, when you create that account, and then they've got your recovery email address. They can go to that site and they can say, oh, I lost my email address, send me a new one or a new code to reset it, and you're off and running. And so if there's anything that you should say, you know what, I'm going to do a little more inconvenience here to protect this account, it's your Gmail account. So that's the direction that we're going to take today. So to do this, you're going to have to set up dual-factor authentication. You can, if you decide, you know what, I don't really want to do that, you can turn it off afterwards. But if you want to work the example, you're going to have a Gmail account with dual-factor authentication. So let me see if I can get to an account that I haven't set up dual-factor authentication. What accounts do I have out here? Let's try this one. Contacts.
Do you have a password manager?
I do not use a password manager. What's that? No, it's just I've never learned how to use them. I probably should. Anyway. Okay, so I'm logged in to a Gmail account. I don't want you to look at my Gmail. Instead, I need to look at account. .google.com. Okay, so I'm going to come to security. And Google, ways to verify that it's you. Somewhere here, there should be a way to set up two-factor authentication. Sign into Google. Do you see it up here? So it's probably because this is not a Gmail account. It's it's through Gmail, but it's a different provider. Let's see. Okay, I think I might have one more that I can use. How do I log out? I want to log out. Sign out. Use a different one. All right, let's try the Gov. It's already set up for two-factor authentication. All right, I will turn it off this one, and then we'll turn it back on. So yeah, if I've logged out, when I log back in, it's gonna request. It's asking me to put in a code. G.901 525. I'm sorry, say that again.
So if I'm getting onto my email on my phone and I'm using text message to get my verification.
Oh, if they steal your phone? Yeah. I think the whole point here is if they get your password, they don't. You want to be protected from someone who's stolen a list of passwords or who's guessing passwords. Yeah, if they get your phone, they've got you. Unless you've got protection on your phone. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's try this again. Accounts. Or account.google. Security. And two-step verification, I'm going to turn it off here. Turn off. Turn off. Okay, so this should be what it looks like if you don't have two-step verification turned on. So we're ready to advance. I'm sure you all got there much faster than I did. Okay, so add an extra layer of security, keep the bad guys out. That's wonderful. Get started. Make sure it knows who I am. Okay, so now it's saying we're going to set your phone up. Which phone are you going to use? That's the phone I'm going to use. I'll take a text message. We'll say next. Should have sent me a code. Oh, it's under spam. Wonderful. 535952. Type whatever one you got in there. Mine's 535952. Or not. 5350 And I'll turn on two-step verification. So now this account has two-step verification turned on. By the way, there are other options that you can have here. So this one you can do, you've got backup codes, so you can actually print out like 10 backup codes. So if you don't have any technology, if you can remember where you put the piece of paper that has the 10 codes, you can use that to get in. You can use the Authenticator app, which is what I use on my main account, So you don't have to type in the code, it just comes up and it says, are you trying to log in? You say yes, and you're logged in. You can put other phones on here, so you can use a landline should you have access to one of those. And instead of sending you a text message, it'll actually give you a call and have you push numbers and such. I've never tried the security key. Anyway, so that's kind of several options that you have here. But that's where we have to be initially. So first thing. Okay. Anyone having troubles getting two-factor authentication set up who wants to try it? Okay, so the next step then is, and I think I put a link to this here in Learning Suite, this thing on app passwords. So once you have two-factor authentication set up, you can say, all right, I want to set up a password that's just specifically for this account. And so that's what we're going to do here. Why you need an app password, how to generate an app password. We'll go there, go to your Google account, click on security. Oh, app password, that's probably right where I was. I'm gone there. Actually, that was from Learning Suite, but we're going to go there a different way. That's just to kind of the help page on it. I'm going to go back to accounts.google.com. Oh, wait, I'm on the wrong browser. We go back to accounts.google.com. I'll come back to the security tab. And now right here below two-step verification, now that that's on, I have access to app passwords. So I'll go ahead and I've got none set up here, so I'll choose one. This is actually not the account that I want to be on. This is the account I just wanted to show you two-factor authentication on. Let me come here. This is the account I'm going to use. So I've got an app password. I'm going to go ahead and delete this one. Throw this one away. And then that should be right where we are ready to create a new one. So we're going to select the app that we're using. And this is just, the whole idea here is that you can set up different passwords that you can then revoke later. You can say that password, we're not going to be using that anymore. So get rid of it. This one, I'm not doing it for any of these. Instead, I'm going to do a custom one. And so this is going to be called my Excel VBA mail sender. And I'll generate the password for that. Now, I'm actually not going to show you the password because I'll probably forget to change it. And I don't want to publish that onto YouTube. So we'll pause the video. I have a password that I can use with my Gmail account name to authenticate, for the purposes of that application sending stuff. And so because Google is saying we've given you a strong password and you've got two-factor authentication set up on your account, so no one can use that. You can't use that account to log into your Gmail. That password will not log you into Gmail. It will log you just to go and do automated stuff. They figure that's probably okay. All right, so now I have copied that password and I'm ready now to use that to kind of get things set up. So let's come back to our code. So here's our workbook. I'm going to come to the code, Alt F11. And I've given you a couple of things here. I'll be right with you. So we're about to look at this form called form password. A question in the back? Oh, you don't see it yet? Oh, yeah. All right. See the screen now? Yeah, I hit the wrong button. Sorry about that. All right. So I'm just looking at inside our projects in Gmail that we have for today. There's a form here called form password. Now, what I'm going to do with this is ultimately I want to be able to take that password, that app-specific password that I just got from Google, and I want to save it in a file on my local computer. Anytime I say to myself, I'm going to save a password in a local file, I should be a little bit nervous. Because if someone gets access to that password, or that file, they've got that password. And so what this form will do is it will allow us to choose an encryption key and save that in an encrypted way. So it's still going to be a little bit annoying, and you could save it in plain text if you just didn't care if someone got a hold of it. But in this case, we're going to go ahead and save it in an encrypted manner. And it's actually kind of a nice a nice little example. We won't go over the code, but we'll let, I will leave that as an exercise for the interested student to review that code. But here's what we're going to do. We're going to come to Module 1, where I've gotten some code to get us started. And we're going to run this first subprocedure called make credential file. It'll open up that form and it'll say, give us a key. For the key, I guess I will say, these are the times. So that's the key that it's going to use to encrypt this information. I'll type in my username here of Allen@gmail.com. And I'll put in my password. This is the one that this is the one that I just set up. I used a different one just to show you how to do two-factor authentication. But here's where I made the password. And I'm going to paste in that 16-digit password here. When I say OK, that will create a text file at the same location where this workbook is saved. That should be in my downloads. So let's go take a look there. Downloads, here it is, credentials.txt. That's the file. And it's just encrypted using that key that I put. Without that key, there's no way to decrypt this particular file. So now I feel pretty good. The file's there. If someone gets a hold of this file, it's meaningless to them. And unless I supply the key, we can't get at it. Okay. So now we're ready to start working with sending mail. Before we start the process that we're actually going to do to manipulate the worksheet and start sending the messages, I want to look through this module here called mod Gmail. And we have one of these functions that's set up to send BYU mail, so it has the BYU gateway coded into it. It has the right port that it's listening on. Remember that this one will not work on a wireless connection, so you'd have to be on a wired connection. Let's scroll down to the second one, which is where we have send Gmail. So send Gmail takes several parameters. Send to, this is an email address we're sending the message to. From, this is your Gmail account. So this is, smartstudent@gmail.com. Password is the password. It's that app-specific password that we just created. Subject and a body for the message that we're sending. Optionally, you can give an attachment as well. So this is the path to a file that you might want to attach to the message. And we're just going to quickly go through this code. So again, here's a couple of objects that we're creating. These are objects that are not part of Excel. They're not built into VBA. So they're part of the Windows operating system. We connect onto these, a message and a configuration object. And then here we're setting up the configuration. We're saying, listen, how are we going to communicate? We're going to use method number 2, which is using a port. We're going to have an IP address and a port to be able to contact the server. Just like when we're working with a database server, we have to know the host name or the IP address and what port that server is listening on. The same thing here. Here is then the email, or this is the mail server that for Gmail, smtp.gmail.com, and it's listening on port 465. Well, if you didn't have me to tell you that, how could you ever possibly know that? Well, I'm just going to Google port SMTP Gmail. Showing results, SMTP, Gmail SMTP configuration. So that same information will probably be listed in dozens of places here. Let's see if it tells it. Here it is, 465, here it is, smtp.gmail.com and port 465. Well, what if you have to get information, for not one that's not published? What if it's like at your company? Well, this is the same information you need if you're going to hook up a dedicated mail client like Outlook. You're going to hook up Outlook to your corporate mail server. This information is the information you need to know to be able to connect that up. So this information is readily available. It may not be published, but it's available. We're going to use basic authentication. We've got to supply it a username and a password for Gmail to let us send. And those are the things that are just passed in, right? From and PW. And we're using a secure socket layer. And so we're setting that property to true. We update that configuration, and that gets us connected onto the mail server that we're going to try to connect this or I'm not sure if it actually connects, but that's the information that we need to know to connect. So that's one of these objects here, the config object. We now have one that has the details about the message. Message has several properties. It's got a property called to, and that is the email address you're sending the message to. So send to here is just one of the parameters that we're passing into the function, right? So we're going to call this function, we're going to give it an email address to send to, and that's just going to come into the message object. From is the same account that we're using to authenticate, and that's passed in as well. Subject and a body is passed in. Now, there's a couple of different bodies that this object has. It has a text body and it has an HTML body. We're using the text body here. I left these other ones as comments just so you can say, oh, if I'm pretty good writing HTML and I want to send a fancier message, I can give it a specified HTML document. And then it will render that as an HTML page, not just as text. You can send the organization, you can put your name as the sender, but Gmail is going to ignore both of these because it says this is coming from Gmail and it's coming from with whatever account you authenticated with. And so even though we can specify these, they'll be ignored. I think you could specify a reply to. If you ever got a message like that where it's from somebody, but when you hit reply, it replies to somebody else. It's just part of the protocol, and you can specify that separately. I left that here as a comment. This function is not configured to use that because there's no parameter that you can pass in for that. But if you find yourself thinking, I want to take this a little bit further, that's there. If you pass in an attachment, a path to an attachment, it's going to call the add attachment method of the message object. And it's going to attach that file into the email. The way I've set this up, you can only attach one message. You can only attach one file. But you'll notice this is a method. It adds the attachment. You could call it multiple times with different files, and it would add multiple files to be attached to it. Again, it's beyond what this function does, but the functionality is there, and you could modify it if you wanted to. We then connect up the message with the configuration by setting the configuration property of the message object equal to the configuration object. Now it knows it's ready to send. And here then is the statement that sends the message, message.send. Now I've put this inside an error trap. So we try to send, and then we say, if the error number is 0, what does that mean? If I send this message and the error number is 0, what does that mean? No error, everything's okay. So I say send Gmail, that's the name of my function, equals true. You'll notice up here, function is defined, send Gmail, and the return type is Boolean. And so it's going to return true or false. So we are sending back true if there was no error when I sent it. Otherwise, we're going to send back false. And if we send back false, we're going to print into the debug window a little more information about the error, just so for debugging purposes you can see why it failed. Why might it fail? There's several reasons why this might fail. Why might it fail? Password could be wrong. I could get my Gmail account name wrong. The email address I'm trying to send it to could be malformed. So if it's successful sending it, what it means is that whatever server I was trying to send the message with, I connected to it. I said, here's the message to send, and that server received that message and says, we're going to try to send it. Now, we don't know if the user received it. We have no idea if the user opened it. All we really know is, did my outgoing mail server accept the message for delivery? And if it did, chances are it's going to go somewhere. Okay, so that is, we're just kind of cleaning up here. We're deleting the objects. When you set an object equal to nothing, it releases the memory that was allocated for the object back to the operating system. So that should actually send the message. All right, so that's the background. In fact, whether you understand this or not, this whole details or not, it's probably okay because we're going to see how to use it now, and that's the big thing. So let's go ahead and get down to business. So I'm back here to module 1. I've got a sub-procedure called send mail. We've got a bunch of variables declared, most of which we're going to use today as we do this. But now let's take a look here. So this just says we're going to open up, we're going to call a method of our password form. When I call the open file, it opens that same form, but it configures it differently, and it's basically now ready to try to open the file that it saved earlier. But it's going to let you provide the key. if there's no password that comes back, that's what happens when we cancel. If you cancel that form, it wipes out the password and sends it back. And this says, hey, if the password's blank, then we're done. We don't have a password. We can't do anything else to get us out of here. Otherwise, we're going to capture the username and password from that form password, and then we're going to get down to business. So I'm just going to put a breakpoint here. I'm just going to run and see if we can get that username and password. So it remembers the key that I last typed in just because I haven't done anything to stop the code. I didn't unload this form, I just hit it. So it's the same key that was there before. That's nice for this example. I don't have to worry about typing it wrong. I'll say OK. And so now I should be able to look at my username, and my username should be unencrypted. Yeah, there's the username that I put in. Encrypted in the file, but now decrypted as I read it back out. And my password is there too. Of course, I won't print that. I'm trying to keep that a little bit private. Okay, so now I've got a username and a password. I think I'm ready to start doing the rest of the example. This block of code here just reads in the email message.txt file. That's the other one that we downloaded. This is the template file that we're going to use to send the message. It assumes that we are located in the same path as this workbook. So let me just go ahead and open that one and we'll take a look at it. So here's the email message.txt. And so this is the message that we're going to send. We have put the subject that we intend to use for the email message as the first line. So that'll be the subject. And then we've got dear first name. Hey, have you ever gotten a message that actually said that? Dear first name. Hey, someone didn't quite get the code right here to personalize this message to me. So we're going to make sure that all these tags that we've put in here, and of course, there's nothing special about these tags, right? They're just characters here, but we're going to use that for something to search for. When I heard about the trouble you had with your 1990 Jeep Cherokee, I was deeply troubled. I've recently been assigned to your case. I wanted to give you my contact information, let you know that the National Highway Transportation Safety Bureau is currently evaluating the Jeep anti-skid brake system for a possible recall. If you would like to provide any more information about the problem you experienced back in, when was the one we looked at, 2000? Should say 2000 there. Please don't hesitate to contact me sincerely. Be my name there and my phone number. So that's the message that we're going to try to send multiple times, but to get it configured. So I'll just go ahead and run the code. I've got a stop already built in here, so I'll run the code to that stop. And now my template file should be exactly what that text file was, or my template variable should have that same text in it. So here it is. It's the problem with that, and the whole text is here. It's of course scrolling off the screen, but it's all right here. So now it's just my job to kind of get this thing ready to, to start to personalize this. So first thing I'm going to do is I am going to, I got a couple of variables here, a row and a column. Let me get those. So actually, let me go ahead and first put in like the agent phone number and the agent name. I'll just hard code these. Might make more sense to make that more general, but for this example, we'll just hard code them. So I've got the template, a single variable that's holding that whole text file. And so here I'm just going to modify that. I'm going to say my message, another variable we have declared up above, is going to be equal to, I'll call the replace function. I'm going to be looking at the template that I just read in from the file. I'm looking for, what should I look for? Agent name. Oops, missed my quote. And I'll replace it with my name. And while I'm at it, I'm going to go ahead and do I'll put the phone number on there as well. So what's the tag? Agent phone. Ah, 1206. So there's a problem when you get a new phone number, you got to memorize a new phone number. It usually takes me a month to memorize a phone number. I still don't know my wife's phone number. She's had the same phone for close to 20 years. But this one, I memorized this within minutes of getting it because I happened to get it in December of 2006. And the number was 1206. Unbelievable. Ah, I know my phone number. It's 1206. Okay, so I'm going to go back and run these two lines. And let's take a look at, we'll take another look at the message. Yeah, we'll see that in a minute. So instead of template, I'm going to look at message. Hey, it looks pretty good. I've got my phone number in there. Ooh, but how did I miss agent name? What happened? Did I spell it wrong? Agent name looks like it's spelled right. Someone actually saw the error before I ran it. Who was it? What's the problem? Yeah, I'm coming back to the template. So after I make the first change, the next change needs to not go back to the template, but needs to look at the modified template, which I'm putting in the message. So the point is, I'm gonna have to customize this message multiple times, and so I want to keep my template pristine. I don't want to modify my template, but I'll start from the template and I'll start changing the message to be customized for that particular user. And then when I get to the next user, we'll start the process again. All right. So now I think I'm ready to start bringing in the user's data. I may want to do this above where I'm doing this part of the message. So let me look at my data here. In fact, if we look at the template file, I've named these, well, if you want to call them parameters here, this text that I'm going to replace, I've named it very thoughtfully. Model year, make, and model name. If I come to my data, I find out I've got a model year, make, and a model name. These are actually, is it here? Where's my model year? There it is. Model year is the name of one of these fields. Make, well, there it is. They're all three right next to each other. Make and model name. These are all parameters here. So instead of me having to actually code for those individually, I can say, look, just read across that first row, and if I have anything that's set up like a tag, a replace tag, let's just replace it. So let's go ahead and do that with our first little attempt here. So I've got a variable up there called C for the column. So let me start C off at 2. I'm not expecting to find message sent. This is just where I'm going to keep track of whether did I successfully send the message. And so that's not going to show up as a tag, but the rest of these are all possible. First name, last name, city, state, the date of the letter, and so forth. So we'll do a do loop. Do until, now the name of our sheet is data. It's both the name that's on the tab as well as the code name for that sheet. So I don't need a separate variable to keep track of that worksheet. I'll just use data.cells, row number 1, column number C. I'm looking at the value of that. I'm going to do until that value is equal to a 0-length string. We're used to going row by row, going down the row until we hit data. This time we're just going across the column until we hit blank. Put a loop here at the end, do a do events. And of course I'm going to increment C in here. C equals C plus 1. And so now I'm going to take this same kind of a replace, but now I'm going to use the loop. I'm going to say, look at the header on this column, look for a tag, like a replace tag in my message that matches that header. So instead of having this hard coded, I'm going to read this off of whatever value I'm currently looking at going across row 1. So the first time I hit this, it's going to be first name, right? Yeah, so looking for first name. Oh, but this is lowercase and my tags are all uppercase. So I'm going to go ahead and ucase this. And I don't want to replace that with the phone number. Instead, what I want to replace it with is whatever is on the current row. I haven't done anything about the row yet, so let me paste that in there. And let's set up another variable here called the row. R equals 2. We'll start on the first row as 2. And so we replace it with whatever is in the rth row. What have I missed here? I'm missing a quote. Replace. Oh, I don't need UCase here. There we go. There we go. So we're looking for a tag. So take the uppercase value of whatever is in column, the current column of row number 1, put the angle brackets around it, and I'm going to look for that inside of message. And every place I find it, I'm going to replace it with whatever is on the current row that I'm looking at. I'll look for first name inside of angle brackets, and I'll replace it with Evelyn. I think that's my first one, isn't it? Yeah, so the first time I'm going to replace that with Evelyn. I'll then look for last name. If I find it, I'll replace it with Sabo. So that should do a bunch of these. But as it turns out, I got to have my template ones. At least one of these has to be above it, because this is the one that looks for the template. So I may bring both of these just above that loop. Put these right here. So we're getting our row and column set up, and then we're coming in here to do these. All right, I'm going to go ahead and run that again. So I'm going to come back to where I define R and C. I'll run that, and let's see how we did. Let's see what we have left to do here. We'll look at the message. Hey, this looks a lot better. Problem with your 1990 Jeep Cherokee. I drive a 1999 Ford F-350. If I got an email that said problem with your 1999 Ford F-350, that would probably, at least lets me know somebody knows I own that truck. I'd probably open that email. So that's what we're trying to accomplish there. Dear Evelyn, when I heard about the trouble you had with your 1990 Jeep Cherokee, I was deep in trouble. I've recently been assigned to your case. I want to, it's currently evaluating. So we've got something here called system. It's not that simple, right? It's not just one of the fields. We'll have to handle that one by hand. I think we also have the date that the failure happened. We'll have to handle that one by hand as well. Yeah, the fail year. And that's just not one of the data. So we've got a couple more to deal with. So after we do this loop, I'm going to do another message. I'm replacing the message. I could do it before as well, but I'll do it after. Okay, so I'm looking for system. You go back and look at my data and see what I want to bring in for system. So these are all anti-skid system. So brakes, anti-skid system. So how would I do this? Safety Bureau is currently evaluating the Jeep anti-skid system for a possible recall. Okay, I like it. So I don't want to say brakes hydraulic anti-skid system with the colons. That would scream form letter, wouldn't it? So what I want to do is just pull off what's after the last colon. A couple ways we can do that, right? We could use a split function, then just take the last element of the array. But I'm going to do it just a little bit differently, just to introduce you another function we haven't dealt with yet. So we have a position. We have an integer variable already as position. So position equals, and we're used to working with instring, instr. Right, that starts at the beginning of the string and finds, or starts wherever we tell it, and it finds the first occurrence of what we're looking for. There's another one called instring reverse. That starts at the end of the string and comes the other way, and it will find the first occurrence looking from the back ways. So the string to look at is going to be that part that has the skid system in it. So let's look at column number, which is it in? I don't remember. Column M is where the description of the failed component is. So I'm looking at that, and I'm looking for the colon. So this should give me the occurrence of the position of the occurrence of the last colon. And so what I want to do is I want to put that in, but not the whole thing. So I want the mid of whatever's in column M on the current row, not row 1, but row R. Mid of that data starting at the position. That will be where the colon is, but I don't want the colon, so I'll do +1. I think that will modify the message to have anti-skid system in there instead of that tag. I'm going to go ahead and run those and take a look. Did we get it? Oh, of the anti-skid system. Oh, but what's the problem? It's totally uppercase, right? That's going to scream form letter 2. Have you ever gotten that? Dear first name, your name. It's like, actually, it's your name, but it's all uppercase. All right, so we're just going to lowercase this. Now, if I was to run this again, it wouldn't change it because it's looking for system in the message. System's not in the message anymore. I already replaced it. So to see that work, I'm going to have to go way back up to where I first pull it in from the template. I come right back here and run it from here. And that should give it to me a little better, formatted just a little bit better. Evaluating the just make name. Anti-skid system is good, but what happened to make? Oh, I wonder if, yeah, C was already ran up to the top. I should have come back here and picked up the variables as well. Let me try that again. It didn't do any of my columns. Set R and C. Yeah, evaluating the Jeep anti-skid system for a possible recall. I like it. All right, failure won't take very long either. Let's go ahead and do one more, and then we'll be ready to send the message. I think this is called failure. We don't need the lowercase. What we need instead of lowercase is the year, need mid, of whatever is in column. Is it column L? There should be a column called fail date. Someone check and see what that is. I think it's column L. L is the fail date. Yeah, so we're going to replace fail year with the year of the fail date. That should be good. I think we're ready to send the message. All right, so because my send Gmail function, it returns a Boolean value, I can use it to decide what to do based on whether it succeeds or fails. So I will say if send Gmail, okay, send to is in column D, that's the email address we're sending to. So I'll read that off my current row, D. From is in my variable username. We pulled that off of the encrypted file. Password is PW. Subject, oh, we're not quite ready. We got to put in a subject. We have a variable for it, but we haven't established it. And we got to put in a message. The message is good, but right now the message includes the subject, the first line. I got to split those out. This is not too tough. So I'm just going to say position equals in string. I'm just going to look for the carriage return. Starting at the first character, looking at my message, looking for VB new line. Of course, new line is just a constant that has character 10 and character 13 put in the right order to be the carriage return sequence. So now subject is equal to the left of message. How many? Position. Well, position is where that first carriage return character is, and so I want position -1. That should give me a subject. Message is going to be equal to everything after that sequence. So the mid of message, position, +2. +2 because the carriage return sequence is a 2-character sequence. It's character number 13 followed by character number 10. So this will prevent any of the carriage return, the end of line sequence from ending up in either the subject or the message. Okay, if we're successful at sending the message, we'll do something else, we'll do something else. And the whole idea here is that I need to keep track of, if I've sent this, if I get partway through this and it fails, I need to know who I've successfully sent the message to. And so that's what we have column A for. So I'm going to just put in here the date that the message was successfully dispatched. So if it returns true, we'll come right here. And what we're trying to do is put something in column 1 or column A. That's going to equal now. If send Gmail fails, it sends back a false, instead I'm going to write in failed. So now when I try to send it, it will either tell me it'll give me the date that it was sent, or it'll tell me that it failed to send. Ooh, I'm so excited. I'm just going to go ahead and come back up to where I'm splitting the message, so where I set the position. And I'm going to do these one at a time. So I'm just going to Shift F8 and come through these. Actually, I'm going to check to make sure my message and subject are right here. So message now should be without the subject. And if I look at the subject, that should bring the subject in. Yeah, so now I have message and subject separated. I'm ready to try it. Taking a little second to send it, and it came into the block that said it was successful. So I will write that out. And we have written out our first message. Now, what you may not realize is that all of these different email addresses come to me. So I think I have several hundred emails from the last class. So when we make this into a loop, don't run the whole loop. You know, I don't need several thousand emails, you know, from you guys. In fact, what you might want to do is change the first few of these email addresses to some email address that you have access to. That way you can verify that it's working. And right now you can only verify that it's working if I go and look at my email. But if you change these to an email account that you can see, then you can see if it's working. Let's just go see if that came through. Oh, I have 11,000 unread messages. Here's last class. Microsoft, Google. It does take a minute for this to come through because it actually goes through BYU, and BYU spends some time looking at that. So let me just try to see if I can get there in my mail.byu account. Whoops. If it was successfully been dispatched to Gmail, which is how I handle my email, let's come back and see if they come through. Oh, yeah, here's some new ones. I don't see mine yet, but several of you have come through. Problem with your 1990 Jeep Cherokee. Dear L. It just sounds so sincere. Derek, safety analyst. Ooh, is that your real number? Give Derek a call. I think I just put that on YouTube, so sorry about that, Derek. Okay. A little trouble that I haven't seen the one that I sent yet. But you know, I bet it will show up in my sent messages because this is the account that I use. Let me go look in sent. And IS World 2, is that? Yeah, IS World, that's the account that I have there. So here's the one that I sent. And it's coming out of my, oh, did I miss fail year? Anyway, I think we're ready to kind of put this into a loop. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. We're always going to start here. We always want C to come back and start, but now we're going to start on row 2, but we've got a couple of problems. First of all, if I run this, I want to start by advancing down to where I don't see anything in column A. So I want to first start off by saying, let's scan down until I don't find anything in column A, and then from there, let's start sending until we don't see anything more in column B. So this is a kind of a two-step, I've got to find where to start on this list and then run until I'm finished. So I'm going to do until, looking at data, column A. Oh! What else have I done? Let's copy that. I must have pasted instead of copying. Do until, there we go. Whatever's on the current row, column A is blank. Equal to a zero length string. Put a do events in here just in case I've done something wrong. And all I'm doing here is I'm just incrementing R. We're starting on row 2. Is it blank? No. Add 1. Looking at row 3. Is it blank? No. Add 1. Is it blank? No. Add 1. Finally, it'll be blank. It'll let us out of this loop. And I'm ready to start another loop right immediately. Do until whatever row we're on, column B is a zero length string. And now we want to do all of this. So I'll come down here and put a loop down here. We need to be incrementing R. R equals R plus 1. Put a do events. And then tab the rest of this in. So we scan down until we find a blank cell, and then we continue to send messages as long as we have data. I really do not want to send all those messages, so here at just before loop, I'm just going to say if R is greater than 4, get me out of here. So even though it would normally look for more data, this is just to exit here kind of quickly. All right, I'm going to stop my code and run it again from scratch. Fail year. This didn't quite look right to me last time, but and let me go ahead and put this over so we can kind of see the other one happening. Hopefully, this will. Oh, not next. Of course, that should be loop. Did I do it down below as well? I got that one right. Asking for my key. So it looks like we sent a few and then it let us out. Oh, whew. Okay, any questions? Anyone not getting that to work or getting an error message? Take a look. All right, this will take a long time to run. Well, you know, it takes what, 2 or 3 seconds for each one, and there's what, I don't remember how much data there is. 187. So that's 2, 3, 6, like 10 minutes or so to run this. That's long enough for me to get up, stretch my legs, and go around somewhere. Maybe I'll go get a ham sandwich. I would like my little information slave here to let me know when he's done with this work. And so after this loop, when we get to here, that's where it's saying it's done. I'm just going to have it send me a text message. Now, The way that we're going to send text message is to leverage the email to text gateway that your email provider or your cellular provider has. I've put the popular ones here on the system info tab. So Alltel, AT&T, Boost Mobile, Nextel, Sprint. These are just, how many of you are familiar with email to text gateway? Oh, so all these carriers, if you know the person's carrier and you know the person's 10-digit phone number, you can use your email client to send them a text message. All you have to do is send it to 10-digit number at, and then have the right gateway. Now my phone is Sprint. So Sprint is messaging.sprintpcs.com. So I'm gonna, I guess I'm about to put my phone number on YouTube. Derek, we already put yours. Can we use yours? No, I'm just kidding. I'll do mine. Oh, I hope I don't get abused. All right. So now let me just print. I'll do a debug.print. Send Gmail. Okay, who am I sending it to? I'm sending it to myself as a text. So this is my 10-digit number, 801-372-0683 at the gateway for my provider. Who am I sending it from? I'm sending it from variables UN for username. Password is there. Subject. I'm not sure how subjects come through on text message. Finished. And then let's see, what do I want my information slave to say to me? Probably should start off with master. I have completed the list and await further instructions. And no attachment. Okay. So I should be able to just run that. Now I think I've got the sound turned on my phone. Let's see how long it takes to come through. Okay, printed true. So Gmail accepted that and received it. There's the message. And I'm sure you can't quite see from back there. And there it is. Oh yeah, it actually puts subject and then the subject, and it puts that into the text message. So the text message came through. So that's the nice thing about sending text messages this way. The big nice thing is that it's free. The downside is what? You got to know you can reply. Oh yeah, if I reply to this, come back to my this reply will go back to my email account. So it goes back to the gateway and it remembers, oh yeah, we know where we got this message from, and it will send it back through email. But yeah, it's not going to initiate a text conversation that you could have phone to phone. But the kind of bad thing is that you need to know the carrier. It's not enough to have their number, you have to have the carrier as well. Usually right about now, someone raised their hands and says, what happens if you send the number to a carrier that doesn't own the number? And the answer is nothing, they just don't route it. They got nowhere to send it. So the thought is, just make a loop and send it to all of them. Just don't do that. You know, if you're going to do this, find out who the carrier is and send it to them. It's rude, right? You're saying every carrier out there, hopefully one of you can route this for me. And how much are you paying for that? None. So you shouldn't do that. Okay, questions? Go ahead. Does Gmail keep track of the sent messages? Yeah, we should be able to see this in my sent messages. Here it is, finished, master, I have completed. Oh, this was last class period. Apparently I put the same subject on it. And so yeah, it keeps track of that. You're using this service to send that, and Google's keeping track of it. Other questions? The one over here. The question is, are there sites that you could give the number to and it would tell you the carrier? And the answer is no. It will tell you the carrier that issued the number. This number that I just used was issued by no, I think this one was issued by Sprint. I had another one that was issued by Verizon that then got ported over to Sprint. And so if you use that number, it'll tell you this was a Verizon number, but no guarantee a Verizon number. At least every site that I've seen, I haven't looked for years, but every site that I've seen, that's what it was. It was who issued the number. Other questions? All right. Thanks for coming. You've got a project due tonight. Don't forget about that. And we will see you on Monday. Class dismissed.